Record.
Hello, I'm David Parry, a counselling psychologist, and thank you for joining me. In this talk, I want to share with you my experience of being diagnosed with IBS and how I've managed it to the extent that I no longer have the condition. Back in 1995, I began to experience and suffer from severe and intensely painful stomach aches and cramps on a regular basis. These were usually followed by suffering an intensely sore stomach for the next few days, which was extremely debilitating. One night, the pain was so excruciating that I thought it might be an appendicitis. However, when the doctor examined me, he diagnosed IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. I was given a referral to have his diagnosis tested, had an endoscope examination down my front, down my throat, and apparently confirmed this by finding no signs of physical causation. Following this examination, I was advised to stop smoking and reduce my alcohol consumption. At this time, I smoked occasionally and consumed alcohol rarely. Nowadays, I don't smoke or drink alcohol. I am not taking any medication or drugs either. A dietitian at the time advised me to drink either before or after, but not during eating. To take the prescribed medicine which was Zantac. It's been taken off, shown to have carcinogenic properties. So I was taking prescribing as and when I felt the need to, which was about twice a day. I was also informed there was no cure for this condition. That might diminish with time. I might therefore need to take some form of medication the rest of my life. As to its causation, nothing conclusive was offered, although stress, smoking, and alcohol were thought to aggravate and exacerbate it. Due to the painful experience of IBS, I began to experiment with to see if it might alleviate the symptoms. It did help somewhat. Gradually, through experimentation, I began to eat the foods that constitute my diet. In fact, I can more or less eat anything, but I do eat mostly organic food and not processed food. So that's. I also want to find another way, if I could, to manage my IBS without the medication, which was inclined to give me diarrhea. It was also around this time that I became aware of a Channel 4 TV series entitled Stand Still, Be Fit. And after trying the first exercise with Master Lam Kam Chuan, who demonstrated how to practice it in the aforementioned television program, I realized that it could be very helpful to me. Therefore, I sent off the booklet and began practicing experiment with Jam Chung, or standing like a tree, or stand still, be fit. It's also known. The aim of Jam Chung is to stimulate the flow of vital energy in the body. The Chinese call this Qi. Exercises that promote the flow of Qi are called Qigong, literally meaning internal energy exercises. Jam Chung, on which standing still like a tree is based, is one of the most powerful forms of Qigong. This was in the booklet that was written by Master Lam Kam Chuan in 1995. Following Master Lam's advice, I exercised with Stand Still, Be Fit after my morning bath and before my breakfast. From the very first time I did the complete exercise routine, as described in the book, I began to notice some interesting experiences and sensations. After I had completed the warm-up exercises and the 8 fine stretches, and as I held the postures, which there are 5 in total, I began to bring up a lot of wind from my stomach, through my mouth, which in turn created a lot of saliva, which I spat down my toilet. Secondly, my fingertips began to tingle pleasantly with a warm glow. As I developed a deeper understanding of the practice of Stand Still, Be Fit, I realized the exercise was stimulating my circulation, vital energy, or Qi. Furthermore, due to the practice of holding the postures, that is standing still, I had little choice but to stay with my body. As I did so, I began to get an intense felt sense of my body. By noticing sensations as they emerged in my awareness, I diligently took notice of these by, for example, noting aches and pains and by contemplating possible and likely causation. I also stopped holding a particular posture if my body began to communicate distress, as instructed by Master Lam. Through this process, I began to develop a deeper relationship with and deeper understanding of my body, and to realize that I could shift the focus of my attention around my body and conduct a body scan with all its attendant benefits, as described by Williams and Penniman in 2011 in their book Mindfulness. Through this way of being, I found that I could experience my awareness, its intentionality, instead of being solely located coming from my head to whatever I focused upon or caught my attention. I could experience being, that's listening, sensing, feeling from my heart, as a heartfelt experience to myself and others. I also later on developed tinnitus, and I found that being able to direct my attention away from the tinnitus was very useful. I also began to become aware of the question of what to do with my mind. Should I, for example, try to enter that meditative state whereby something mysteriously happens and a sense of oneness with the universe and inner stillness and calm experience, as the books of meditation I had read appeared to propose? And if this is the desired state I should aim to experience, how could I go about generating it? To this end, I did consider repeating a mantra or koan from the Buddhist tradition of meditation. However, I was puzzled how such a technique could enable me to have a clear mind and be in the moment, because surely repeating a mantra or koan, no matter how I said it, whether under my breath, aloud, or silently in my mind, would have the effect of occupying my awareness and become an obstacle, a distraction to being in the moment with a clear mind. So I decided against it. This problem, however, re-emerged when I had to decide how long to hold each individual posture. This decision involved taking into consideration how much time I could, on a daily different basis, devote to my exercise routine and to how long I could hold each posture without feeling too physically distressed or bored. Eventually, I decided to count to a number I set myself as a target. To begin with, it was very low. It was 10, 20, 20 times for each posture. But now it's up to 100. And that's generally what I find as the most helpful for me. I've got the time as well. Whilst holding each position, rather than allocate a set amount of time to holding each position, by necessity, this approach entailed counting my breaths and focusing on them. Thus, I was faced with kind of the same problem as before, which is counting my breaths would occupy my awareness and hinder my aim to be in the moment. Hence, I felt confused as I wanted to experience being in the moment and experiencing with a clear mind, but unsure how to go about achieving this aim, or even if it was possible, because surely I'll be occupied in my mind if I choose to count my breaths, repeat a mantra, or even watch a clock. However, in reality, I found that despite counting my breaths, thoughts, memories, sensations, and feelings kept emerging in my awareness, and therefore apparently interfering with my aim to experience being in the moment with a clear mind. It was during this process that I realized that I am being in the moment if I let whatever emerges in my awareness be. I therefore decided to experiment with that whatever emerges into my awareness was practicing be. I also tried to remain curious as to why whatever it is has emerged in my awareness. I also find out keeping a record of the experience, if they seem important by writing them down, for example, aids my self-awareness. As I began experiencing bringing up a lot of wind from my body, it occurred to me that mothers also bring up winds from their bodies. They burn them. And because trapped air and wind makes babies experience discomfort. Consequently, I thought, if this is beneficial for babies, I began to question, why is it as we get older, we are discouraged from expelling gases which build up naturally in our bodies through burping and breaking wind. In this culture, it appears to me that burping and breaking wind are not a socially correct way to behave. And therefore, in a sense, we must curb and stifle our body's spontaneity. I also recalled that having a severe attack of colic can kill a horse. Sometimes the place in my stomach area were due to the build-up gases that found difficulty being expelled. I was in fact suffering with severe wind retention. Related to this hypothesis, I met a dietitian who asked me if I breathe when eating. This question set me thinking, and if I made a point of monitoring my breathing whilst eating, and found that often I hardly took any breaths at all. I thus experimented with taking advice and suddenly found out when I made a point of breathing, usually in from my nose and exhaling through my mouth, while I ate, I naturally brought up wind. This helps digest. I also discovered that at times I tense my stomach muscles without noticing it, or apparently making a willed effort to do so. And this is another way I restrict oxygen into my lower body and aid in the digestive process. And also, if you go tense, it's hard to digest food. At the time of developing IBS, I had been in an ongoing situation I experienced as highly stressful and for quite a number of years. But that's not to say that ended back then. But the stand still, be fit approach to exercise certainly helped me get over that enormously. It is only with the passage of time that I think I was probably experiencing fight or flight much of the time back then as well, and still do on occasions. Hence my difficulties digesting food, because Most of the time I felt tense and my energies were being directed away from my digestive system. I was shallow breathing due to feeling tense, unsafe and on my guard. I also began to be aware of thinking of my intestines as being analogous to the pipes of my central heating. And I thought, well, if their block hinders their effectiveness, it's likely to do the same with my intestines, which are much more complicated than my central heating system. Therefore, through doing the jam chewing exercises, during which my body expelled the bowel gas, I noticed my uncomfortable and painfully bloated feelings lessened to the point that I no longer needed to take the medication. And this happened as soon as I began practicing jam on a daily basis. And now I use jam chewing to start my day whenever I feel uncomfortably bloated or experience painful stomach spasms and cramps, or feel the need I would benefit from doing it later in the day if I feel, I might have indigestion, which I very rarely get, or I feel stressed, anxious, or just tense. My current understanding of how the practice of standing like a tree reduces stress is that it requires me to slow down and stay still with my body, which I experience as calming. This approach to exercise is in stark contrast to more aerobic forms of exercise that entail more or less non-stop action, with little time to focus upon the moment and our felt sense. It is also an opportunity to be highly reflective and introspective and not be too distracted and preoccupied with the physical exertion it involves. It involves breathing steadily and deeply into my nose, out through my mouth, by inhaling air from the top of my head and then pushing the air down to my stomach, whereby I exhale it from my mouth. When I exhale, I tend to push my stomach forward and tense it and push it forward. I experience this activity is very calming, and my experience there comes reported. Sorry, I lost my way. And my experience, therefore, concurs with reports that focusing on one's breathing has health benefits due to its calming effect. And my experience that exercising with jam chewing always lifts my mood somewhat is in keeping with the research findings that show physical exercise to be beneficial both physically and psychologically. It is also a relatively gentle form of exercise that can be more or less practiced by anybody, or at least both I say it could be. And it's also very good for when you're carrying an injury. It is a way of building a deeper, more trusting relationship with my body and my sense of self by listening to and reflecting upon its many forms of communication, and by conversing with it through self-talk. And as such, exemplifies the dual relationship we experience with ourselves as both subject and object. I also think that writing down anything that keeps emerging in my words or appears to be important while I'm practicing jam chewing helps to clear myself of stressful thoughts and feelings, and therefore enhances its health benefits for IBS. By standing still and not trying to distract ourselves away from our feeling, this can help us develop the ability and confidence that we can stay with what may be, to begin with, uncomfortable or even distressing thoughts, feelings and memories. Through doing this, we can learn to stand back from experiences, thoughts, feelings and memories that upset us. So we are far less likely to feel overwhelmed by them, whilst at the same time staying with them. In other words, we engage in experience, thoughts, feelings and memories that upset us rather than trying to avoid and distract us from doing so. If you have found this video interesting and have not done so, please look at my video of how I practice standing like a tree and how it affects my body. I'm going to end here. Thanks for watching, and I hope you get out as much from standing like a tree as I have. Thank you. Bye-bye.